It began in the grand chamber of the Galactic Council, a place built from glass and light that floated above the gas storms of the planet Irith. The hall was wide and curved, its walls alive with glowing sigils of 100 worlds. Delegates from every known species sat around a long arc of silver thrones, their faces lit by the slow pulse of the council's central beacon. It was a symbol of unity, or at least that was what they liked to say. But on that day, the light flickered faintly, as if the universe itself hesitated to listen to what was about to be spoken. The chamber buzzed with laughter, sharp and cruel, echoing against the high ceiling. At the far end of the hall, the representative of the Varn Dominion waved a clawed hand, his voice dripping with mockery as he looked at the small hologram of a blue planet spinning in the center. "Earth," he said with a smirk. "The species that thought kindness could win wars." Around him, the delegates laughed. The Autharion Voy, with her long neck and glimmering scales, added. They begged for peace even as their ships burned. Such fragile creatures. It is no surprise they are gone. Another voice joined, deep and heavy, belonging to the Brack Empire's warlord. Weakness always ends the same way, extinction. The laughter grew louder, a cruel symphony of arrogance. For decades, Earth had been silent. No messages, no fleets, no colonies sending trade or signal. After the Battle of Centauri, where the last Terran defense fleet was destroyed, humanity vanished from the galactic stage. Their home system, Sol, was marked as restricted space, officially abandoned. The council members moved on, filling their archives with new alliances and new wars, barely remembering the humans they once called allies. But that silence, the one they mocked as defeat, was not peace. It was something else. And on that day, when the council gathered to celebrate the signing of another treaty, the silence ended. It started as a flicker of static across the chamber's communication stream. A small ripple of interference ran through the holographic screens. The council's beacon dimmed. The Brack warlord frowned, tapping the device on his arm. "What is this?" he growled. The council chair, a tall, feathered being from the planet Sarin, tilted her head. "A transmission?" she asked softly. "From where?" The technician at the edge of the hall hesitated. His fingers moved quickly over the control surface, trying to trace the signal's origin. "Unknown source," he said. "Frequency ancient, unregistered. Wait, it's using Terran code." The room fell silent for the first time in years. No one moved. The laughter died mid-breath. Then the holographic screens in front of every delegate flickered again, and a grainy image appeared. Static white noise, and a faint human voice beneath it. It repeated in a calm, almost quiet tone, every word steady, deliberate, and hauntingly clear. "This is Earth's final transmission." No one spoke. The room's air seemed to freeze. The message repeated again, same tone, same words, unchanging. The technician swallowed hard. "It's broadcasting through every major relay," he whispered. "Every system, every language hub. It's overriding encryption protocols." The Brack warlord stood up, his eyes glowing. "Shut it down." "We can't," the technician replied, voice shaking. "It's everywhere." The hologram of Earth spun slowly at the center of the chamber, faint blue light shimmering on the council floor. The static cleared slightly, revealing coordinates in white text across the screen. The Sarin chair leaned closer, her feathers rising in unease. "Coordinates," she murmured. "Sol system." The Varn delegate hissed in disbelief. "That system's dead," he said. "There's nothing left there but ruins." "Then explain why it's broadcasting," the chair replied quietly. The room filled with whispers now, voices laced with both curiosity and unease. The Autharion Voy adjusted her translator collar, her eyes darting to the hologram. "Maybe it's a relic signal," she said. "A leftover from their old war machines." "No relic can pierce modern comnets," the technician said. "This signal, it's alive." The words hung in the air like smoke. Somewhere deep in the chamber, the sound of the beacon flickering echoed. A slow, rhythmic pulse, almost in time with the heartbeat of every being in the room. The signal repeated again, This is Earth's final transmission. This time, there was something new beneath the words, a faint distortion, like distant thunder, or the low hum of engines waiting in the dark. One by one, council members began to stand. The Brack warlord's claws dug into the railing beside him. "It's a bluff," he said. "They're extinct. Some old machine must have reactivated. I'll send my scouts to erase whatever remains." "No," the chair said firmly. "We don't move until we understand what this is." She looked at the hologram again, her golden eyes narrowing. Humans never spoke without reason. The technician's console beeped. "There's a data packet embedded in the transmission," he said, "encoded in multiple dialects. It's a message addressed to all members of the council." The chamber's lights dimmed automatically as the beacon began to project the data. A simple text unfolded across the holographic air. "We tried peace. We offered help. We gave the stars everything we had. This is our answer." No sound came after that. Only the faint hum of the projectors. The delegates looked at one another, unsure if what they had read was a threat, a warning, or something far worse. The Athari envoy leaned closer to the hologram. "It's poetic," she whispered. "Maybe a cultural relic." The Brack warlord snarled. "It's defiance. A last gasp from the dead." But as they argued, the static began to build again, rising in pitch. The technician shouted, "The signal is amplifying. It's spreading beyond council channels. Every known frequency is carrying it." Across the galaxy, communication lines flickered. Civilian broadcasts, military frequencies, trade relays, all hijacked by that same repeating line. Planets paused mid-transmission. Starships halted in space. The words echoed through every speaker, every data feed, every private transmission. "This is Earth's final transmission." Back in the council chamber, panic began to grow. Delegates shouted over each other. "Cut the beacon. Trace the origin. Shut the signal down before it spreads." But it was already too late. The technician's hands moved rapidly, sweat beading on his forehead. "It's not coming from one point," he said. "It's everywhere. Every relay node. It's as if the entire galactic net is speaking for them." The Sarin chair stood slowly, her long feathers trembling slightly. "No species has ever done this," she said softly. "Not even the old empires." She turned to the hologram of Earth. "What did you become?" Then, for the first time, the static cleared completely. The hologram zoomed closer, passing through the swirling atmosphere, over oceans and continents long thought dead. The planet looked scarred, gray and burned, but beneath the surface, faint lights began to flicker. Not cities, but patterns, geometric and deliberate, stretching across entire continents like circuitry. Gasps rippled through the room. "Are those energy grids?" the technician whispered. The Brack warlord stepped forward, eyes wide. "No, those are weapon arrays." The lights pulsed once, twice, then vanished. The signal went silent. For a few long moments, the chamber was utterly still. Every species in that room, from the smallest insectoid to the largest reptilian, stared at the darkened hologram. The Varn delegate broke the silence first. "It's an illusion," he said quickly. "A holographic trick. There's no power on that planet." The technician didn't answer. He was staring at his screen, his face pale. "Sir," he said, voice trembling, "every deep space probe in the Sol sector just went offline." The Brack warlord slammed a fist against the railing. "Then send warships." "To attack what?" the chair asked sharply. "A planet that's been silent for half a century?" Her voice lowered. "Or something that's been watching us the whole time?" The hologram flickered again. The message returned, only this time it wasn't just a voice. It was a visual transmission. A human figure stood in shadow, barely visible through static. No insignia, no name, just the outline of a person standing against a dim light. The voice came again, soft but clear. "This is Earth's final transmission. We remember the laughter. We remember your silence when we called for help. We remember every promise broken. You taught us the meaning of fear. Now we return it to you." The signal ended. A cold silence filled the chamber. The delegates sat frozen, their eyes fixed on the fading image. The technician's console beeped again, but no one dared to speak. Outside the council's floating citadel, lightning flashed across the endless storms of Irith. The sound rumbled like distant drums of war. The chair slowly exhaled. "Prepare an investigation," she said quietly. No military response. Not yet. We watch. We listen. But even as she said it, deep within her heart she knew it was already too late. Across the stars, every listening post and every civilian receiver still carried the faint echo of the words, looping endlessly into the dark. "This is Earth's final transmission." That night, long after the council adjourned, the technician remained alone in the chamber, staring at the empty hologram. He replayed the signal again and again, isolating fragments of the static. On the fifth replay, he noticed something. Beneath the voice, buried deep in the data layer, a faint heartbeat pattern. Not mechanical, biological. It was synchronized with the pulse of the signal itself, like the planet was alive. The technician leaned closer, his hands shaking. "It's not just a message," he whispered. "It's a countdown." But when he tried to trace it again, the console went black. The signal vanished from every archive, as if it had never existed. Yet, across distant sectors, old Terran satellites began to wake. Machines that hadn't moved in centuries turned their eyes toward the stars. In the cold void near Jupiter, a single beacon blinked red for the first time since the fall of Centauri. It sent a simple, one-line report back to the heart of the Sol system. Signal confirmed. Directive 01 active. And in the quiet dark of the Milky Way, where the stars drifted like silent witnesses, the echo of humanity's last words whispered through the void again. Steady, calm, and final. This is Earth's final transmission. The galaxy didn't sleep that night. Across 1,000 worlds, the words of Earth's final transmission still echoed through the data streams, repeating in strange waves that refused to fade. Scientists stayed awake in glass towers, priests knelt before their cosmic shrines, and soldiers on the far borders of the spiral arms stared at the void beyond their stations, waiting for something, anything, to appear. But nothing came. Only silence, thick and heavy, pressing against the stars like a storm building behind the horizon. The Galactic Council issued statements, calm and official, calling the broadcast a technical glitch, an old echo from the pre-war era. But their eyes betrayed the lie. Every leader who had sat in that chamber had seen the light under Earth's surface, the patterns that were not cities but something older, colder, deliberate. And they all felt the same uneasy truth: humanity was not gone. It was waiting. On the third day after the broadcast, the council convened again in secret. The hall was smaller this time, darkened, guarded by armored sentinels with orders to shoot if anyone outside tried to enter. The air smelled of ozone and tension. "We must act," growled the Brack warlord, his massive frame barely fitting in his chair. "Whatever that signal was, it's infected our networks. We should burn the system clean." The Sarin chair, feathers dim in the low light, shook her head. "You cannot burn an echo," she said softly. "This is not code. This is intent." The Athari envoy hissed nervously, her scales shifting color. "Then what do you suggest? We sit and wait for ghosts." The chair looked toward the hologram at the center of the room. A simple sphere, representing the Sol system, spinning slowly in quiet defiance. Sometimes ghosts are the ones who come back when you least expect them. Far beyond the Council's planet, in the cold dark edges of known space, deep space probes drifted silently through dust and radiation. They were old machines, relics of exploration, forgotten by most. Yet one by one, they began to detect strange energy bursts near the outer rim of the Sol system, small, rhythmic, and repeating like a heartbeat. The automated stations flagged the signals, but every time a ship was sent to investigate, its sensors failed. Entire scout teams vanished from contact, their last transmissions filled with static that matched the same Terran frequency pattern. "This is Earth's final transmission." The reports came back fragmented, but one phrase appeared again and again in the surviving data logs: reactivation protocol. On Vega Prime, the first planet to mock the humans openly after Centauri, the military grew restless. Their generals believed in strength, not superstition. They deployed a research fleet to the edges of human space, boasting to the media that they would find the source and destroy it. But the fleet never returned. Days later, Vega's outer moon telescopes captured something that froze every observer in place. Faint silhouettes of colossal ships, motionless in the dark, their hulls reflecting no light, only absorbing it. They drifted just beyond the reach of Vega's sun, silent and still, like shadows carved out of the void. When the telescopes tried to focus, the images distorted. Electronic interference spiked, and all data wiped itself clean. The only record left was a brief audio fragment, metal creaking under immense pressure, followed by a soft human voice whispering through static, "Acknowledged." Back in the council's inner chambers, paranoia spread like fire. The Brack warlord accused the Saran chair of hiding information. The Athari envoy demanded military readiness. The chair herself sat in silence, her golden eyes fixed on the hologram, lost in thought. She remembered the humans not from war reports but from before. The way they built cities that touched the clouds. The way they smiled even after losing everything. She remembered their diplomats who spoke of unity, who offered food to starving colonies and medicine to dying children. And she remembered the day the council turned away from them, calling them idealists. "They are too kind to survive," someone had said then. And yet now, decades later, it was that same kindness that haunted them all, wrapped inside a message that felt more like a verdict than a farewell. News of the lost Vega fleet spread fast despite the council's attempts to contain it. Rumors took shape in the outer colonies, that Earth had built something under its surface before the fall, something that could hide entire fleets, something waiting for a signal. Miners on the moons of Trion claimed they saw faint blue lights sweeping across the night sky, moving in perfect formation. Merchants whispered of strange radio bursts intercepting trade channels, all containing fragments of old Earth songs, distorted but recognizable. And in some places, people began to pray, not to their gods, but to the humans they once mocked. Because for the first time in generations, fear had a new name, Earth. The silence deepened. Trade slowed. Patrols vanished. The Council's communications network began to flicker with strange errors, untraceable interference coming from the direction of Sol. No one dared to speak of war yet, but preparations began quietly. Armies rearmed, fleets refueled, and intelligence units ordered to monitor all Terran relics. Still, nothing came. Weeks passed, then months, and the silence became unbearable. It was the kind that pressed against the soul, that made even the most powerful empires feel small. It was as if the stars themselves were holding their breath. Then, on the 94th day after the transmission, something changed. The deep space observatories near the Deneb frontier detected faint gravitational distortions, ripples moving against known laws. At first, they thought it was a collapsing star. But the readings were too precise, too rhythmic. It was movement, controlled, massive. The data analysts sent their findings to the council, their voices trembling. "Whatever it is," one report said, "it's human design. The engine signature matches pre-Centauri Terran patterns, only magnified." The room fell silent once more. The Saran chair closed her eyes. "They're not coming back as explorers," she whispered. "They're coming back as something else." Out among the empty reaches, the source of those distortions stirred. In the shadow of Jupiter's dead moons, ancient human stations that had floated lifeless for decades suddenly came alive. Old engines hummed, lights flickered, and beneath the frozen surface of Europa, sealed hangars began to open. Ice cracked like thunder, revealing steel corridors that had never seen starlight since the war. Machines moved inside, mechanical arms awakening under layers of frost. One after another, forgotten warships rose from their graves, silent, colossal, bearing no nation's flag, only a single symbol etched into their hulls. A white circle with a blue sphere at its center, Earth. But they did not move toward the stars. Not yet. They waited. Systems powered up slowly, ancient AI cores linking to one another, exchanging data that no alien could ever decode. Somewhere deep beneath the ruins of the old Terran capital, a single command line appeared on an underground console, glowing pale against the darkness. Directive 01 active. Awaiting final confirmation. The computer waited for input. None came, yet still, as if by memory alone, the machine whispered its next line. For every kindness ignored, for every mercy betrayed. And the reactor deep below began to hum. Back in the council chamber, the Athari envoy broke the silence with a trembling voice. "What do we do if they truly return?" she asked. The chair did not answer. The Brack warlord snarled. "We destroy them before they rise again." "Destroy them?" The chair replied, voice cold as glass. "The last time someone tried that, an entire arm of space burned for 10 years. She looked around the room slowly. "You don't destroy ghosts, Commander. You only summon them." And summon them they had. Because even as they spoke, faint messages began to leak across the subspace bands. Not words this time, but coordinates, hundreds of them, each marking a site where ancient Terran colonies once stood. Every one of those dead worlds now flickered with strange activity. Energy surges, surface signals, atmospheric distortions, as if the graves of humanity were breathing again. Alien scouts sent to observe them reported seeing flashes of movement. Metallic figures moving among the ruins, scanning the skies. Some called them drones. Others said they were human survivors. None returned. The silence finally broke on the 100th day. The Council's long-range sensors detected a signal from the edge of known space, faint but distinct. It carried no words, only a simple rhythm, steady and unchanging. When translated, it matched a human heartbeat, the same one hidden under Earth's final transmission. The galaxy's greatest empires, the Varn, the Brack, the Athari, all turned their fleets toward the Terran system, not to attack, but to watch, to wait, to understand. Because somewhere, deep in their hearts, they all felt it. The air before lightning strikes, the quiet before the first shot of war, the silence before the storm. The silence finally broke on the dawn of the 101st day, when the deep space radar at Deneb station caught something impossible. At first, it looked like background noise, faint waves of static that rose and fell in steady rhythm. But then the technician realized those waves were not random. They were structured, deliberate, coded. He leaned closer to the display, his eyes wide, whispering, "This isn't interference. This is formation." When the first visual data arrived, the station fell quiet. A fleet, dark, massive and silent, was moving through the void without emitting any light, only bending gravity around itself. The technician sent the report to the Council, his voice trembling. "They're not ships from any known empire. They're human." The transmission ended with static, and then Deneb station went dark forever. When the Council received the report, the chamber froze. The delegates stared at the distorted hologram of the fleet, their minds refusing to believe what their eyes saw. The Brack warlord slammed his fist into the table. "Impossible," he roared. "The humans never had technology like this." The Sarin chair's feathers twitched. "They didn't," she said softly. "Not before Centauri." The Athari envoy hissed in disbelief. "How did they build this in silence?" The chair looked at her calmly, her voice barely a whisper. "Maybe the silence was the building, out beyond the borders of the known galaxy." The Terran fleet drifted in the darkness, hundreds of ships aligned with surgical precision. They moved without thrusters, without visible heat, their forms only visible when starlight hit the edges of their armor. Black alloy that drank the light instead of reflecting it. At their center was a colossal vessel, larger than any dreadnought the Council had ever recorded. Its hull carried the old Terran emblem, weathered and faint, and beneath it, one phrase engraved into the metal: "The line endures." Inside the command deck, lights flickered awake. Rows of cryogenic pods lined the walls, each one marked with an ancient name. As power surged, mist rose from the floors, and a single pod opened with a hiss. A man stepped out, his breath fogging the cold air. He stood silently for a long time, then walked to the command console and placed his hand on the surface. The ship recognized him instantly, voice soft, synthetic, and loyal. "Welcome back, Admiral Reyes. Directive 01 confirmed." Reyes looked at the screen before him. The galaxy map shimmered, filled with familiar stars that had forgotten his kind. His voice was rough, quiet, tired. "Status report." The AI replied, "All ships operational. Reactors stable. Fleet ready for deployment. Awaiting final command." He stared at the words "final command" for a long moment. His eyes were old, filled with the ghosts of Centauri, of burning colonies, of children crying as cities fell from the sky. He whispered, "We sent them mercy, and they sent us silence." The AI paused before answering, "Do we respond, Admiral?" Reyes closed his eyes. "We answer." Across the fleet, systems came alive. Energy flowed through the ship veins like blood returning to a heart long frozen. Weapons that had never been seen before pulsed with blue light, silent but deadly. Engines hummed without sound, bending gravity to move through space unseen. The formation shifted, hundreds of warships turning in unison until they faced the galactic center. A transmission left the flagship, coded in ancient Terran frequency, bouncing from relay to relay, reaching every corner of the galaxy. It contained only one message, short and cold, yet filled with more meaning than any war declaration in history. "We tried peace. We tried silence. Now we answer." When that message reached the Galactic Council, chaos followed. The chamber erupted in shouts. "Mobilize fleets. Fortify colonies. Destroy their relays." But the Sarin chair did not move. She stood quietly, staring at the screen, watching as the coordinates unfolded. Every Terran colony that had been abandoned now marked with returning movement. "They're not coming to talk," she said softly. "They're coming to remember." Her voice broke slightly when she added, "And remembrance is always heavier than revenge." Out in the far reaches, alien traders began reporting strange encounters. Massive shadows passing by their ships, scanners failing, engines cutting out, followed by the sound of human voices speaking through static, whispering coordinates, then vanishing. One captain swore he saw a Terran ship passing right through an asteroid field without impact, its hull glowing faintly like a ghost. Another reported seeing a ship that seemed to phase in and out of existence, as if reality itself bent around it. The stories spread faster than any official message. Fear returned to the stars, old and sharp, the kind that had a name, humanity. Inside the flagship Soul's Wrath, Admiral Reyes stood before his crew, all survivors from different generations, each awakened from cryosleep for this moment. Their uniforms were dark, simple, bearing no symbols of nations, only a small patch with a single word, Earth. "We sent kindness to the stars," Reyes said, his voice echoing through the command deck. "We gave them medicine, food, science, even when they mocked us. And when they burned our colonies, we still offered peace. But the galaxy took our mercy as weakness. So we fell silent. We let them laugh. We let them forget. But we never stopped building." He paused, his gaze distant. "The Council thinks we seek war. They're wrong. We seek balance. And balance begins with truth." He raised his hand. "Begin Phase 1. The fleet moved. No light, no sound, only motion. The first target was Vega Prime, the same world whose news feeds had once broadcast the fall of Earth as entertainment. They had mocked human soldiers as they died on their screens. Now their skies darkened. Satellites blinked out. Communications failed. No ships were detected entering the system, yet every orbital defense platform began to shut down one by one. Panic spread across Vega's surface. Civilians ran to shelters as the skies shimmered with faint aurora-like waves. Then, without warning, the clouds split open. For 42 seconds, the sky turned white. When it ended, the stars returned. Vega Prime's capital was gone. No craters, no rubble, just silence. The fleet had not fired missiles or plasma or bombs. They had used something else, something that erased, not destroyed. Across the galaxy, observers tried to understand the weapon, but no data survived. All they knew was that a single human ship had appeared briefly on Vega's orbit before vanishing again. Before disappearing, It transmitted a single piece of audio. An old Terran song, soft, sorrowful, echoing through the void. A song of mourning. When the council heard it, the chamber filled with fear. The Brack warlord pounded the table. "They've declared war." The Athari envoy whispered, "No, this isn't war. This is judgment." The Saran chair looked at the image of Earth, her voice trembling. "We should have listened when they asked for help. Now, no one will hear us when we call." Meanwhile, deep within the Terran flagship, Admiral Reyes watched the reports in silence. He didn't smile, didn't speak. He simply stood there, hand resting on the cold glass, watching the stars drift slowly past. "They called us weak," he said quietly. "They forgot the strength that comes from patience." The AI responded, "The galaxy will remember now." Reyes nodded once. "No," he whispered. "They will remember what they made us become." And so the fleet continued its silent journey, a line of shadows crossing the void, unannounced and unstoppable. Every ship bore the same calm rhythm in its core, the same heartbeat that had been hidden under Earth's final message. To those who could hear it, it sounded almost human, a reminder that the quietest threats are the ones already fulfilled. And across the galaxy, every being who once mocked the humans now looked at the stars with unease, waiting for that heartbeat to come closer, realizing too late that the silence had never been peace. It had been preparation. The first strike did not come with thunder, nor with fire, but with silence. Vega Prime's sky looked calm that morning, sunlight painting the cities in gold, children playing near the floating gardens, merchants shouting through glass corridors that touched the clouds. No one knew that above them, death had already arrived. In orbit, a shadow moved without sound. It wasn't seen by scanners or satellites, only felt, like pressure, like the faint chill that comes before a storm. The shadow was human, and its eyes were awake after centuries of sleep. On board the Terran warship Soul's Wrath, Admiral Reyes stood on the bridge, staring at the planet below. The blue light from Vega's atmosphere reflected faintly on his face, highlighting the deep scars time had left behind. Around him, the bridge was silent, filled with men and women whose faces carried the same quiet resolve. They were not soldiers anymore. They were witnesses. He gave no speech, no order of rage. His voice was calm, steady, almost mournful when he said, "Begin transmission." The communication officer nodded and activated the channel. A single message was sent down to the planet. A voice, clear and human, echoing across every device, every broadcast, every frequency. "We asked for peace. You answered with laughter. We begged for mercy. You answered with fire. Now we answer." The message ended and the planet froze. Every network, every feed, every mind waited for what would come next. On the surface, military forces scrambled, their defense satellites locking onto invisible targets. Commanders shouted, "Track them!" But there was nothing to track. The enemy wasn't seen, wasn't felt, wasn't there. And yet every alarm screamed of intrusion. Within seconds, power grids began to fail. City lights flickered out, one by one, until the capital fell into a strange twilight. The wind grew still, the air too heavy to breathe. Then, from the sky, came a faint hum, low and deep, like the sound of mountains shifting. People looked up, shielding their eyes from the strange shimmer forming above the clouds. It wasn't lightning and it wasn't fire. It was light, pure and white, descending slowly like falling snow. In orbit, the Terran ship's reactor pulsed once. A wave of energy, invisible and clean, spread through the atmosphere, erasing everything built on cruelty. Buildings remained standing, but the weapons, the command centers, the systems that controlled them, all vanished in silence. No explosions, no screams, just absence. When the wave passed, the cities stood empty, their lights cold, their noise gone. Vega Prime was still beautiful, but it no longer spoke. The entire world had fallen quiet, erased not in rage but in precision. On the bridge, Reyes closed his eyes. "Report," he said softly. "Operation completed," the officer replied. "No biological loss. Only systems. The Admiral nodded, his voice barely audible. Then let them see what silence feels like. The AI spoke quietly, almost like a conscience. You could have destroyed them. Reyes looked through the glass at the silent world below. Destruction is mercy, he said. What we give is consequence. The message spread faster than light. Every world, every empire, every trader on the edge of the spiral arm heard the news. Vega Prime, rich, proud, mocking Vega, was silent. Not destroyed, not burning, just gone from the map of the living. The council gathered in emergency, panic twisting their voices. The Brack warlord slammed the table with his claws, his voice filled with fury and fear. They could have ended that world, but they didn't. Why leave it standing? The Athari envoy shivered, her scales flickering between pale and dark. Because they wanted us to see, she whispered. The Sarin chair turned her gaze toward the hologram of the now-dead world, her voice quiet and heavy. They're sending a message to the rest of us. They want us to understand what silence costs. Across the stars, fleets moved in confusion. Some races prepared for defense, others begged the council for protection, but none dared to strike first. Every time a fleet was dispatched toward human space, the ships would vanish from radar halfway through their journey. Their last signal always the same faint hum that Vega heard before it fell silent. Soon, no one sent ships anymore. The galaxy waited, holding its breath, afraid to make a sound. Meanwhile, inside the Terran flagship, the crew moved with purpose. Every operation was quiet, every order carried out without question. They weren't celebrating victory. There was no triumph, only wait. Commander Hale, a young officer born on one of the lost colonies, stood beside the Admiral. Sir, she said, they'll call us monsters. Reyes didn't look at her. His gaze stayed fixed on the stars. They already did, he replied. But monsters don't offer warnings. We did. He paused, his tone softening. What comes next will depend on how they answer this silence. In the following days, faint transmissions began to echo through the dark. Some were pleas for negotiation, others threats wrapped in fear. None were acknowledged. The Terran fleet remained motionless, their ships drifting in formation, powered but still. Then, one night, without a signal or command, a second fleet appeared, smaller, older, but human. Ships from forgotten colonies, ancient models patched together over centuries, came out of hiding, guided by the same coordinates that had pulsed through the stars. Their commanders hailed Sol's wrath, voices breaking with emotion. We heard your call, one said. Humanity stands again. Reyes listened in silence, his hands trembling slightly. For the first time in many years, he allowed himself a faint, weary smile. Then let the stars remember our name, he said. From the Council's core world, desperate messages flooded every network. They demanded surrender, apologies, anything that could end the fear. But humanity sent no reply. Their silence had become their weapon, sharper than any blade, heavier than any threat. Alien empires began to crumble from within, their citizens losing faith, their armies paralyzed by the thought of invisible judgment hanging over them. The galaxy that once laughed at humans now whispered their name like a prayer, afraid the sound itself might summon them. In the stillness of space, Admiral Reyes stood alone on the bridge, watching the hologram of Earth. It glowed faintly, alive again after centuries. His reflection shone over the image, weary eyes meeting the world that made him. He spoke softly, almost to himself. They called us weak. They thought mercy meant surrender. They never understood that mercy takes strength. And now they will. The AI's light flickered beside him. Do you think they will listen this time? It asked. Reyes's expression didn't change. They will listen, he said, because silence, when it speaks, speaks loudest. And somewhere in the dark between stars, as Vega's empty world drifted quietly through the void, the hum began again. The same low pulse that had haunted the galaxy since the first message. But this time, it carried something new, hidden beneath the static. A heartbeat, slow, human, alive. The galaxy would come to call it the sound of judgment, But to those who once knew Earth, it was something else entirely. It was the sound of home, returning. The Galactic Council chamber had never known true silence before that day, yet now the walls themselves seemed to breathe in fear. The great banners of alien empires hung lifeless, their colors dim under the cold glow of the emergency lights. The vast circular hall that once echoed with laughter and politics had become a place of whispers and dread. Delegates sat in uneasy silence, their faces pale, their eyes fixed on the floating hologram of Vega Prime. Once a world of pride and progress, now nothing but stillness, its oceans calm, its skies empty, its heart hollow. The hologram flickered softly, every detail of that silent world reflected in the eyes of those who used to call humanity weak. No one dared to speak first. It was as if saying anything would draw attention from the shadows that now haunted every mind in the room. Finally, the Brack warlord broke the silence, his voice shaking not with rage, but with something rare, fear. "We must strike now," he said, claws gripping the edge of the table so hard the metal bent beneath them. "Before their fleet grows stronger, before they erase another world." The Athari envoy, her scales dull with exhaustion, hissed softly. "And where will you strike, warlord? We can't find them. Our scanners see only empty space. Our ships vanish before they even reach their borders." The warlord's jaw tightened, his chest heaving. "Then we burn everything between here and Sol. We drown them in their own ashes." The Saran chair raised her hand, her voice calm but cutting. "You speak of ashes, but have you noticed, warlord, that Vega still burns nowhere? Humanity erased its power, not its people. They left them alive to live in silence. Tell me, what kind of vengeance shows mercy?" Her golden eyes glinted in the dim light. "That, gentleman, is not vengeance. That is control." The chamber murmured. Words like mercy, judgment, balance rippled through the air, words the council had long forgotten. The Athari envoy turned toward the chair, her voice trembling. "What are they becoming?" she asked. The chair's feathers moved slowly, catching the light like a dying flame. "Not what they were," she said quietly. "Something older, something colder. The humans we once knew believed in forgiveness. What we see now believes in consequence." Across the table, the Varn Dominion's ambassador activated his datapad. His hands shook as he displayed a report. "We tried to send probes toward Sol," he said. "None returned. They disappeared without a trace. Even our long-range sensors, they fail when pointed toward their system." His voice cracked. "It's as if the void itself refuses to look at them." Another delegate whispered, "Our comms still pick up that heartbeat signal. Comes and goes, but when it appears, our systems stall. It's like it listens." The chair turned slowly toward the center of the room. "It does listen," she said softly. "That is the part none of you understand. The humans are not fighting for domination. They're making us listen the way we made them silent." As she spoke, the council doors slid open, and a messenger stumbled in, gasping for air. His uniform was torn, his face pale. "Council members," he said, voice trembling. "We've received a new transmission from the Terran fleet." The chamber fell silent again. The messenger swallowed hard, his hands shaking as he placed the hollow disk onto the table. A beam of blue light rose from it, flickering into the shape of a human figure. Tall, calm, shadowed, face unreadable. The voice that spoke was neither loud nor cruel, but steady, like a storm speaking softly before it breaks. "You called us weak. You mocked our peace. You left our worlds to burn while you watched. But you forgot one truth mercy remembers. For every child that called for help and was ignored, for every home left in ruins, we carry their silence. You thought our kindness meant surrender. You were wrong. We learned it from you." The hologram paused, and for a moment, the voice softened, almost sad. "We do not come for your people. We come for your arrogance. The stars no longer need your counsel." The image faded. The room stayed frozen. No one dared to breathe. The Brack warlord roared in anger, standing so suddenly his chair crashed behind him. They insult the order of the galaxy. They call for war. But the Athari envoy's voice cracked when she answered, "They don't need to call for it. It's already here." From the outer sectors came fresh reports. A dozen council fleets had gone dark, vanishing from every known frequency. Entire trade routes no longer responded. Merchant ships found themselves stranded when their engines refused to start, their power drained by something unseen. Those who survived described strange shadows passing near their hulls, unseen by sensors but felt in the gut, the same feeling one gets before lightning strikes. Then the transmissions began, not from humans but from planets themselves. Civilizations that had laughed at Earth now sent messages begging for aid. Some begged forgiveness. Others begged for protection. None received replies. The council chamber filled with chaos. Voices rose, overlapping, panicked. "We must rebuild the Alliance fleets. No one can fight what we cannot see. We must sue for peace before they erase us." But the Sarin chair did not move. She stood slowly, her long feathers catching the dim light, her expression unreadable. "Peace?" she said softly. "Do you think they will accept it now? After what we did to them? After what we turned them into?" She looked around the room, eyes sharp as knives. "We broke the one species that believed the stars could be kind. And now we beg that same kindness to save us." Her words hung in the air like smoke, heavy and bitter. The Brack warlord clenched his fists. "Then what do you propose, chairwoman?" The room fell quiet. She looked toward the hologram of Vega's silent world and whispered, "We listen. That's all we can do now. We listen. And we pray that mercy still lives somewhere in them." But even as she spoke those words, deep in the council's data core, something strange was happening. The network lights flickered. The screens blinked with code that no one had entered. The system AI froze for a second, then displayed a single human phrase in every language known to the council. "We remember." The delegates stared in horror as the message replicated itself across every display, every communication feed, every archive. The message burned like a brand, unstoppable. "We remember." The lights went out. In the darkness, someone screamed, others shouted. But above it all came the sound. Faint, distant, yet unmistakable. The same human heartbeat that had haunted them since the first transmission. It pulsed through the walls, through their chests, through the floor beneath them. The Brack warlord stumbled backward, gasping, "They're here." The Athari envoy whispered, "No, not here." Listening. The heartbeat grew louder, steady, calm, patient. And then, as suddenly as it began, it stopped. The lights returned, the chamber flickering back to life, but the hologram of Vega was gone. In its place was a new image, the Sol system, Earth glowing faintly blue again, alive. Underneath it, a single sentence appeared in Terran text. "The silence is over." For the first time in recorded history, the Galactic Council adjourned without resolution. Delegates fled the chamber, some shouting, some weeping, some praying to gods who had never answered. The Sarin chair stood alone at the center, looking at the fading hologram of Earth. She felt something in her chest she hadn't felt in a century. Guilt. She whispered softly to the empty air, "Forgive us, humans. We never understood what your silence meant." Outside, lightning rolled across the skies of Irith, painting the glass towers in white light. Somewhere far beyond those clouds, beyond the reach of their fleets, beyond even their fear, the human ships drifted silent, invisible, patient. Watching, waiting. The first strike had ended. The second had not yet begun. But the galaxy already knew that the war had changed forever. The humans did not seek destruction. They sought remembrance. And remembrance, once awakened, never slept again. The message came not with thunder or fire, but with a whisper that crossed galaxies. It began as a faint tremor in the Council's deepest listening stations, a soft pulse buried under layers of static. For hours, the technicians thought it was just another echo, another ghost in the network left by the Terran fleet. But then the pulse turned into a voice. Old human, steady. "This is Earth." The words were calm, too calm, carrying weight heavier than any weapon. The message spread through every channel in the galaxy, bypassing codes and filters, reaching every screen, every speaker, every living soul that had once laughed at humanity's weakness. The voice continued, quiet but unshakable. We do not come to conquer. We do not come to destroy. We come to speak. In the grand chamber of the Galactic Council, the delegates froze as the voice filled the air around them. It wasn't mechanical. It wasn't synthetic. It was real, breathing, alive. The tone carried years of pain and patience, the sound of a people who had once screamed for help and learned to scream no more. You feared our kindness, the voice said softly. You called it weakness. You feared our peace because it showed you what you had forgotten. The Brack warlord gritted his teeth, his claws trembling. Cut the feed, he shouted. But the technicians shook their heads. It's not coming through the network. One whispered, it's everywhere. The voice continued. You taught us silence by ignoring our cries. You taught US strength by showing us cruelty. You taught us patience by forcing us to wait. And now we speak because we have learned everything you meant to teach. On every world, people stopped what they were doing. Traders stood still in marketplaces. Pilots froze at their controls. Children looked to the sky. The sound filled the void between stars, as if the galaxy itself had become the vessel for a human soul. We do not seek revenge, the voice said, softer now, almost sorrowful. We seek remembrance. You cannot erase what you called weak because that weakness was hope. And hope never dies. The Athari envoy wept openly, her shimmering eyes glistening as she whispered, it's not a threat. It's a eulogy. The chair of the council stood motionless, her feathers trembling as she felt the weight of every word. She had heard human diplomats speak once, long ago, when they still wore smiles and offered hands of peace. That same warmth was still there, but behind it now lived steel. Far beyond the council's world, inside the Terran flagship Sol's Wrath, Admiral Reyes stood at the center of the command deck. The voice that echoed across the galaxy was his, transmitted from deep within Earth's core, amplified by every human ship, every relay, every awakened satellite. He did not shout. He did not command. He simply spoke the truth. When we fell silent, you believed we were gone. But silence is not death. It is the breath before the storm. It is the sound of those who have seen too much pain to speak in anger. His eyes stayed fixed on the holographic map of the galaxy, each blinking at a world that had once turned away when humanity begged for help. We offered compassion, he continued. We offered unity. You mocked both. We showed mercy. You called it fear. But mercy is not weakness. It is restraint. It is power under control. And now restraint has ended. As his words spread, the galaxy seemed to stop spinning. Space stations powered down, their systems overwhelmed by the signal. Fleets halted mid-flight. Even the stars felt colder. Their light dimmed as if they too were listening. The voice lowered, almost breaking with emotion. We will not erase your worlds, Reyes said. We will not burn your skies. We will not do what you did to us. Because we do not need to. History will do it for us. You will fade, not from our hands, but from the memory of mercy you betrayed. Back in the council chamber, every delegate sat frozen, their faces pale, their minds trapped in that voice. The Brack warlord whispered, he speaks as if he's already won. The Sarin chair answered softly, he has, because we are the ones speaking in fear, not them. The voice came again, but now it carried something deeper, something almost humanly tender. To those who showed us kindness, it said, we remember you. You will be spared from what follows. But to those who laughed as our homes burned, the universe itself will silence you. The final words fell heavy, each syllable like a closing door. This is not a war. This is balance. This is Earth's voice, and the stars will hear it. And then, just like that, the signal faded. The static returned. The halls of power went quiet once more, but the silence was no longer simple absence. It was fear, thick and suffocating. No one spoke. No one breathed. For the first time in living memory, the galaxy felt small. Light years away, on the surface of Earth, deep beneath mountains of steel and dust, ancient reactors pulsed alive. The planet's core had become the mind of an awakened civilization. Every machine, every network, every satellite worked as one. The oceans shimmered faintly under orbiting ships. Humanity had not only survived, it had evolved. Their silence had been creation. Their weakness had been transformation. From the ashes of their past rose something neither mechanical nor divine, but something in between. Admiral Reyes stood in the command deck, surrounded by the hum of power older than him. The AI voice, calm and patient, spoke beside him. "They are listening." Reyes nodded slowly. "Good," he whispered. "Then they finally understand." He looked toward the holographic image of Earth glowing softly before him, a faint smile ghosting across his face. "We were never gone," he said quietly. "We were just waiting for them to hear." In the dark corridors of Sol's Wrath, soldiers and engineers stopped to listen to the fading echoes of his transmission. Some wept, others smiled. None spoke. It was not the sound of victory they heard, it was the sound of vindication. Across the fleet, the human heartbeat signal returned, slow and steady, synchronizing with every ship, every crew member, every core. It pulsed through the void like a living memory, and with every beat, the galaxy remembered the name it had tried to forget. Earth. Back in the council chamber, the chair stood alone after everyone else had gone. She placed her hand against the cold surface of the table, staring at the faint blue image of Earth still lingering on the hologram. "They tried peace," she whispered to herself, voice trembling. "And we mocked them. They tried silence, and we called them cowards. Now they speak, and the stars tremble." She closed her eyes, whispering a prayer to no God, only to the universe itself. "May they find the mercy we lost." Outside, the skies of Irith cracked with distant lightning, as if the storm that had been waiting for centuries had finally arrived. Across the galaxy, the great empires of arrogance began to crumble from within. And among the ruins of old pride, the last echo of Earth's voice still lingered in the air, soft and final. "We do not seek to rule the stars. We only remind them who lit them first." The galaxy slept uneasily after the voice of Earth faded, but sleep was not peace. Every world that had once mocked humanity now watched the stars with trembling hearts, afraid of the silence that followed. For weeks, nothing happened. No new messages, no fleets, no attacks. The Terran ships hung in the void like shadows frozen in time, their engines quiet, their purpose unreadable. The council called it a ceasefire, but in truth it felt like the stillness before something greater, something inevitable. The fear grew heavier each passing day, spreading across systems like frost in deep space. Empires that once ruled entire sectors now whispered prayers to a species they had once erased from history. In the hidden command deck of Sol's Wrath, Admiral Reyes stood alone, staring at the holographic map of the galaxy. Every point of light that marked a world flickered softly, each one a memory, each one a scar. Behind him, the AI spoke quietly, its tone almost human. "All fleets are in position, Admiral. The Council has gone silent. Shall we begin?" Reyes didn't answer at once. His eyes remained on the glowing blue sphere of Earth. "Do you hear that?" he asked softly. "The quiet." The AI hesitated. "Yes, Admiral. The galaxy is listening." Reyes nodded slowly. "Good," he whispered. "Then let it hear the truth." He turned, his coat brushing against the cold metal floor, his steps slow and deliberate. "Open the channel," he said. The AI complied. Across the stars, lights flickered, comms activated, every signal tuned to one frequency. Then the silence broke. A familiar human voice, calm, tired, infinite, filled the galaxy once more. "This is Earth's final transmission." The words carried through space like a heartbeat, steady and clear. Every species, every leader, every living being stopped to listen. "You feared our kindness. You mocked our silence. You made us into ghosts, and in doing so, you gave us forever. We do not wish for war. We wish for understanding. But if you will not remember us through peace, then you will remember us through the quiet we leave behind. The message continued, echoing through every relay and satellite, reaching even the darkest corners of uncharted space. We asked for unity. You chose division. We offered compassion. You chose pride. But we never forgot. And we never stopped listening. The tone was neither angry nor cruel. It was mournful, like the last words of a civilization too wise for vengeance, too broken for forgiveness. There will be no more wars, the voice said softly, because the stars themselves will learn silence. And then something changed. Across the galaxy, lights began to dim. Communication relays flickered and died. Weapons systems shut down. Engines failed. Armies found themselves powerless, unable to fire, unable to speak. No explosions followed, no screams, only stillness. The Terran fleet had released something vast, an energy wave that moved not through matter but through code, through consciousness. It didn't destroy, it erased. Every trace of violence, every system built for war, every archive that carried hate, gone in a blink. Yet life was spared. Cities remained. People lived. But their skies were quiet. In the council chamber, the delegates stood helpless, watching as the holograms faded one by one. The Brack warlord dropped to his knees, his voice breaking. They have taken the stars from us. The Athari envoy trembled, her voice a whisper. No, they've given them back. The Sarin chair stood silently, her eyes wet with tears. She looked toward the empty air where Earth's signal had once glowed and said softly, "This is how they forgive." On Vega Prime, once silenced by the first strike, the people awoke to new dawn. The skies were clear, their world untouched but changed forever. No weapons remained, no armies, no means to hurt again. On the horizon, faint patterns glowed in the sky, like auroras whispering across the air. They took shape for only a moment, the symbol of Earth shining faintly, then vanished. And every person who saw it felt the same thing in their hearts: sorrow and peace. Back on Sol's Wrath, Reyes stood at the center of the bridge, surrounded by silence so deep it felt holy. The AI spoke softly. "The galaxy is quiet, Admiral. The directive is complete." Reyes nodded slowly. "Then we are finished," he said. He turned toward the viewport, watching the stars fade to calm silver light. "We were called weak," he whispered, "but weakness built what strength never could. Mercy was never surrender. It was patience, and patience has finally spoken." The AI paused. "What now, Admiral?" Reyes smiled faintly, the lines of age soft under the glow of the stars. "Now," he said, "we rest." He walked toward the observation window, his reflection merging with the infinite dark. "Let the galaxy heal. Let them remember what silence feels like when it isn't fear." He reached out and touched the cold glass, whispering, "This is our last message, our last kindness." And with that, he gave the final order. Power down. Across the fleet, lights dimmed. Engines quieted. One by one, the Terran warships shut themselves off, their signals fading into the void. The last transmission carried across the stars, simple and human. "We forgive you." The words drifted through the darkness, echoing longer than sound should, lingering in the corners of space where even light refused to go. And as the message faded, every listening world felt something they hadn't felt in centuries. Hope. Years passed. The council rebuilt, but it was never the same. Wars ended before they began. Treaties were signed without pride. And whenever someone spoke of Earth, they did so softly, with reverence, as if afraid to break the fragile peace left behind. The humans had become legend, not as conquerors but as teachers. Their silence had taught the galaxy what noise never could. On a distant world, a child asked her mother one night, "Did the humans really exist?" The mother smiled, looking up at the stars where faint blue light still shimmered. "Yes," she said, "they did. And one day, if we forget why peace matters, they'll remind us again." And far beyond, where no ship dared to fly, on the dark edge of the Milky Way, a single Terran beacon still blinked faintly. It carried no weapons, no warnings, only one final message repeating through time and space, over and over, a whisper that would never fade. This is Earth's final transmission.